I'm very proud to announce our speaker for tonight. Our speaker tonight is a man I originally met my sophomore year of high school at the Hugh O'Brien Leadership Conference. Jim's wise word and insight stuck with me throughout my high school and into my college career. It wasn't until my freshman year of college did I find out Jim was not only an MSU alumnus, but also my fraternity brother as well. Jim has developed 3 national programs dealing with youth, women, and returning veterans. He's appeared on ABC, NBC, CBS National News, The Today Show, and The Oprah Winfrey Show. He has been featured in Newsweek, USA Today, Business Week, Chicago Sun-Times, Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, Newsday, Detroit Free Press, and New York Times. Was invited by 14 world leaders to talk about the breakdown of families, has been the subject of nationwide documentary show in Japan.
Jim Tuman believes in balance in his life and so has done such diverse things as being a circus clown, rodeo rider, symphony musician, cake director, and parade enthusiast. He's also served as a famine relief worker in Ethiopia, worked as a roadie with the rap group Journey, passed a milestone of speaking to more than 2 million students in more than 2,000 schools nationwide. Also, he's prestigiously named Detroit News Michiganian of the Year, and also named 2012 Distinguished Alumni for Michigan State University. Now, my Greek brothers and sisters, please welcome Jim Tuman.
Who's the most important person you know? 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 Why was that so difficult tonight for some of you to say that you were the most important person that you knew? Virtually every one of you who came this evening can influence thousands of people in your life. What are you going to be able to give to somebody if you don't feel good enough about yourself to give them something? I was coming back from being on the road for 5 straight days, working at this level of intensity to groups of 1,000 or more. And I just wanted some peace and quiet. I just wanted to be alone. I found this restaurant, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. All the lunchtime crowd had gone. Grabbed a newspaper, walked all the way down to the last seat of the counter, and literally wanted to tune out the world. Didn't want to talk to one single person. And I'm sitting there reading the newspaper, and I glanced out of the corner of my eye, a guy walks in. He could have picked any seat at the counter. Instead, what he does is he walks all the way down and sits down right next to me and starts talking. Well, you know how someone invades your space, you get real uncomfortable. That's what happened. I kept on tuning him out, he kept on talking. And you know, everyone, how sometimes a word or a phrase or a gesture catches you? That's what happened with this guy. Turned out he was 36 years old. He had built a small business in Northern California into a multi-million-dollar computer business. 4 weeks before he met me, he walked into his doctor's office for a routine annual company physical. Doctor called him up 3 days later, told him he had leukemia, less than 6 months to live. This guy was just blown away. He had all the stuff he could possibly want. He showed me pictures of his home overlooking the Pacific in Carmel, California. He had the cars, the boats, everything. Now he didn't have the time to be able to enjoy any of these things. And he did something to me that was incredibly courageous. He decided he was going to sell every single thing he owned. And he was going to take off just to get a chance to see the things he never got a chance to see, working 16, 18-hour days, and certainly talk to people like me he never got a chance to talk to. And I was so touched by this guy that I found myself actually walking out to my car after that lunch. And I sat behind the steering wheel, and I found myself crying. In 1 hour's time, this guy influenced me more than people who have been in my life for 30 years. All of us here tonight have that opportunity. Again, what are you going to be able to give to somebody if you don't feel good enough about yourself to give them something? The unfortunate thing, and you're looking at somebody who's truly guilty of this, is that sometimes we are so busy allowing other people to dictate how we should feel about ourselves that we can't see our own value. Let me show you something. What's your first name? Mackenzie. Mackenzie, let's assume, Mackenzie, that every one of us here tonight, every one of us throughout the whole Greek nation, that we got together, Mackenzie, and decided that you were absolutely the ugliest person we had ever seen in our entire lives. In our entire lives. And wherever you went all over campus, people went behind you and said, wow, there goes Mackenzie, she is so ugly. And people kept on whispering behind your back. And even when you went home for the weekend, your parents locked you in the bedroom for 2 hours because you're so incredibly ugly. I'm watching you get real red-faced, get real uncomfortable, get really embarrassed. Tell me the truth, Mackenzie. How do you feel if enough people say you're ugly? Very unwanted. Actually picked on Mackenzie, and Mackenzie's really attractive. So let's take the complete opposite side. Let's assume, Mackenzie, that we all got together and said, wow, Mackenzie's a great friend. She's always there when I need her. She always seems to care. She always understands. How do you feel if enough people say you're great? Very appreciated. What have we done, everyone, to Mackenzie in the span of 30 seconds? We've taken her from feeling unwanted to feeling appreciated just because all of you guys have decided that's how she should feel. And you buy into it. You allow it to happen. I spent so much of my early days, including my life here on campus, keeping people away. Don't get too close to me. Maybe you'll find out that I'm weak. Don't get too close to me. Maybe you'll find out that I'm insecure. Don't get too close to me. Maybe you'll find out that I'm afraid. I spent so much of my time keeping people away, when the very thing I wanted to do was let them in. But see, in my family, love was based on performance. So the more I performed, the greater the love. And there was always that fear. One day, what happens if I don't perform? Will there really be any love? And I just kept people away. In my family, love was given and taken away. I was too scared that somebody was going to walk in, see somebody that they didn't like, and leave. And leave. And so I kept the mask up. Kept the mask going. And I had no idea, everybody, what was really important in my life. I had no idea. Let me show you something. It's Christmas morning, and you've got any car in the world sitting in your driveway with a huge bow on that car. What kind of car would you want? A Maserati. Tell me what color you want the Maserati. Black. Same question. Christmas morning. Any car sitting in your driveway that you always dreamt about. What is it? An Audi. Okay. What color you want the Audi? Silver. Okay? Let's create the ultimate for both of you. Let's assume that you really, really own these cars. And they're the best thing in this entire planet that you have ever had. And you've driven them here tonight, parked them in the parking lot, and they're right next to each other. And when I'm through speaking, the end of the evening, you're going to pick somebody here you really care about, and you're going to take off. And you love these cars. Now let's take it one step further. Let's assume that I'm driving through the parking lot with this enormous crane with a wrecking ball on the crane. And I get to your Maserati, easily 200 grand these days, and I take the wrecking ball and I swing it back and I go, wham! rip off the entire front end of that Maserati, drop it on the top of the Maserati. Parts are all over the parking lot. All over the parking lot. I move over to your Audi, probably 75 to 100,000, maybe a little bit more, and I take the wrecking ball and I swing it back and I go wham, 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 like a riveter. So if there is a back seat to that Audi, it is now the front seat of the Audi. There is no insurance on these cars, guys. You got 41 months of payments left. In the case of your Maserati, probably $5 grand easy a month. You guys are standing in front of the wreckage of your cars strewn all over the parking lot. You're looking at each other and you're surely glaring back at me with a whole lot of hate. I'm going to get into my car, guys, and as I pass both of you pulling out of the parking lot, I'm going to smile and wave to you guys. Just smile and wave. Assuming no one's going to come down on you for anything. There's no right or wrong, 100% conscience-free, no judgment issues, complete. What would you want to do to me physically before I got out of that parking lot? What would you want to use to hit me with? A baseball bat, okay. Okay. Same question. No conscience. Nothing to have to ever worry about as long as you live. Walk away scot-free. What would you want to do to me physically before I got out of that parking lot? Push me off the top of the stadium. Good stuff, creative there. Push me off the top of the stadium. Okay, I want the two of you. I want everybody else here tonight. I want you to stop and think about this one. Guys, if these cars were the only reason you had friends, if these cars were the only reason people liked you for, if these cars were the only image that everybody else in the world saw you through, I have actually just destroyed both of you. Your history, you are no more. So here's the deal. If you can't feel good from the inside, if you need the stuff in your lives to make you feel good about yourself, somebody at some point in your life can take it all away. It is just that simple. Just that simple. This point for me personally, and most of you have lived through, world disasters, tsunamis, tornadoes, huge fires, mudslides, everything. But to me, this point got driven home a number of years ago when I got a chance to work in the earthquake area outside of Naples, Italy. Now, I didn't even know what to have even envisioned until I got there. But for 100 square miles, lives, houses, property was gone in 38 seconds. 38 seconds. Let me bring it home for you. You left wherever it is that you live, your dorm, your fraternity or sorority house. You left it tonight. But by the time you get back, there's nothing that you have when you left an hour ago that's still standing. And now you know what these people felt like. And I used to go in and do community organizing. I would work with groups of 6 or 8 people, and I would try to get them to figure out how they were going to rebuild their whole village. And I would ask them the same questions. Why would you want to take a chance and rebuild your village? You're right on an earthquake fault line. This can happen again in 10 days, 10 months, 10 years. But it surely will happen again. You know, everyone, you know what I heard? I heard the same answers. Obviously, different words, same answers. My friends live here. My family lives down the road. I love living in this village. And I read between the lines, what these people were really saying to me was, my friends and family come first in my life, and the things that I own second. Now many of you are saying, hey, this guy's crazy. I'm going to go ahead and get all the stuff I want now, and then I'll deal with the priority in my life. People first, things second. So let me ask all of you in the room a question. If you can answer this question, I am willing to buy you dinner, any place of your choice, any place of your choice. How do you know? How do you know that you don't only have 6 months to live? How do you know that you don't only have 6 months to live? I was speaking at a school in California, a 14-year-old girl who was supposed to have been at that program was killed the night before, coming back from a basketball game in the fog. I spoke out of Romulus High School. Captain of the football team walked into school one day. 2 friends were fighting with another guy. He went to break up that fight. Somebody put a knife into his gut, and he died on the way to the hospital. I am sure those 2 people did not get up that morning and say, this is the last day of the rest of my life. There are no guarantees. No guarantees. Raise your hand in the room if you've been to a funeral in the last year. Now I want you to stop and think about this one. Raise your hand again if you went to that funeral in the last year of somebody who you thought died too young or died before their time. You know, it's devastating for every one of us here tonight, myself included. You see, we magically believe that when we tell a friend of ours, I'll see you later, I'll talk to you on the phone tonight, I'll meet you in class, we actually expect that that person's going to be there in our lives. And when someone in our life breaks the chain, all of us realize we're only on borrowed time. So if you're waiting for the time in your life to feel good about yourself, if you're waiting for the time in your life to find your purpose, if you're waiting for the time in your life to fulfill your dreams, maybe you won't have that time. Maybe you won't have that time. Again, no guarantees. No guarantees. I was both blessed and cursed to be one of the keynote speakers at the 9/11 commemorative. I'm a New Yorker, grew up, 2 of my high school friends were killed in the World Trade, and they asked me to come in and speak. I got there the day before, and there was a big empty pit. And I walked around this empty pit, and I was trying as best I could to find the words. What words were going to be healing words? What words were going to change this scenario of probably one of the more horrific acts in this entire history of our country? And I'm walking around there, and all of a sudden it dawned on me. How many people got up that morning, business as usual, but had unfinished business in their lives? Maybe they were working on a book or a song. Maybe they had a relationship they wanted to heal. Maybe they had, a dream of a place in the world they wanted to visit. And they went to work as if it was a normal day and didn't come home. Didn't come home. One of those people was my friend, my longtime friend from high school. He had an angry, rageful fight with his son that morning. Called his son a loser. And his son has lived out his dad's prophecy. Sleeps all day, doesn't do anything, doesn't seem to care, has no initiative. And I get a call from his mom all the time. All the time. Can't you do something, Jim? Can't you help him out? Sometimes words that many of us, we don't realize, words can take its toll. And words are lasting. And they never go away. And that's what happens. So the challenge for all of you is, see, you're the hope. My hourglass is running down. You're the hope. But you're living in a time when right now, when we're here on April 7th at 7:15, right now there are people planning horrific acts, planning to take out groups of people. And you're living in that time. But the challenge that you can pick up the baton is that you have a chance. You have a chance. I've spoken at Pearl and Paducah, at Columbine, and everybody there said, we saw something wrong. We saw something wrong. And they didn't do anything about it. So there's the challenge for all of you. But you are the hope. In my eyes, you're the hope. You have a chance to turn this around. You have a chance on this planet to make it kinder, gentler. You have a chance to make it feel safe on this campus. And again, the struggle for many of you is, what is really important to you? What is really important to you? Let me show you something. Does anybody here have a $20 bill? Anybody? Anybody got a $20 bill? You got one? I don't want $1, I need a 20. All right, will you do me a favor? Come here for a second. Stand up for a second. Open the bill. Now, will you do me a favor and tear it in half? Tear it in half. Here. You can go sit down. You know, everyone, I know people that have compromised their entire lives for this. I know people that have sold out for this. I am not. So that any of you tonight walk out here the least bit unclear. I'm not saying this isn't important. We run a whole society by this. I am simply saying to all of you who have got some big time choices coming up in your life, if this is the only thing in your life that motivates you, if that's the only thing you get up every day for, if that's the only thing that has any meaning, there's never going to be enough. There is never going to be enough. Let me show you something. Best guess. How many people do you know in your life that are truly 100%, truly happy and fulfilled in their life? Best guess. 50. And how many people in your life do you know? Thousands? Thousands. Same question. How many people in your life do you know that are truly 100% fulfilled and happy in their lives? 10. And in your life, how many people do you know? Thousands also? Same question. How many people in your life do you know that are truly, truly fulfilled and happy in their lives? 75? That's great. Whatever it is that works. And how many people in your life do you know? Thousands? Okay? Watch and listen to those odds. Actually, they're relatively high. You know, I go all over the world and those are relatively high. So you're fortunate. But think about that. We've got a grand total of 3 people that know 135 people that are truly, truly fulfilled and happy in their lives, as opposed to thousands that they know. Want to know what that means for all of you tonight, based on those odds? There's about 3,000 of you here. Based on those odds tonight, maybe 20, 25 of you are going to be truly, truly fulfilled and happy in their lives. Is it going to be you? 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 Or you? Or you? Or you? Who knows? And who knows how much time you've got to deal with this? That's what we're talking about tonight. No guarantees. No guarantees. Raise your hand if you come from a divorced family. Now I want you to stop and think, because normally at this time, and I've been on the road speaking a lot, my voice gets shot. But raise your hand individually. And I'll try and work my way around. Raise your hand individually and tell me, why do you think there are so many divorces in this country today? We lead the world in divorce. We lead the world in divorce. Anybody? Why do you think there's so many divorces in this country today? Anyone? Yes. People get married for the wrong reasons. Thank you, that was great, that was powerful. Anybody else? Why do you think there's so many divorces in this country? And I'm going to have to move around a little bit. Anybody? Why do you think there's so many divorces? Many of you are going to face this anyway. Yes, first name. Yes. Jason, go. Why? They get bored being with the same person 20 plus years. That's the first time I've heard that. That's really, that's powerful. No, Jason, that's right on target. Anybody else? Why do you think there's so many divorces in this country today? Anyone? Just raise your hand. Yes. Money issues, without a doubt. Yes. People don't want to fix problems, they want to avoid them. I want to digress for a minute, and I'm going to get back to this. I wish, say this all the time, I wish that the people in your life who make decisions for you, I wish they could be here tonight. I wish they could be here tonight to listen to the wisdom that all of you share. Somebody raise their hand here. Go, guys. Why? Anybody? Why do you think there's so many divorces? Yes. They don't want to fight for it or fix it. They just want to throw it away. We're a throwaway culture, and this is what's happening. And you're right on target, and I thank you very much. I got married for the first time 8 years ago, and I fall more in love with my wife every single day. I waited for so long to have that happen. She makes it safe for me to feel loved and to love. And that's the key to a lot of what I think is what makes a great union. Anybody else? A couple more people. Why do you think there's so many divorces in this country today? Yes. They think they can find some more happiness somewhere else. Yeah, grass is always greener. Grass is always greener. One more person, anybody. Why do you think we lead the world in divorce? Anybody? Why do you think so many divorces? I'm trying to, do a panorama here. So if you have one up in the bleacher section.
People being complacent versus wanting to persevere for something else.
People get complacent and continue to persevere for someone else. Is that correct? Okay, great. Those are all really good answers. But I have a question for all of you. Do you think people really know each other before they get married? What's the first thing we all do when we meet somebody? We try to impress them. We try to tell them the best of who we are. People fall in love on the basis of that impression. They get married on the basis of that impression. And then they wake up one day and a completely different person has emerged. Somebody who they don't even know. I have a friend of mine in Detroit who's a divorce court judge. He says the biggest reason that people have for being in his courtroom is that the other person changed. The other person didn't change. The other person was in there in the first place. We're too busy, many of us, wearing the mask. Wearing the mask. Let me show you something. Tony, let me have that introduction sheet. This lengthy introduction sheet that Tony read at the beginning of the start. It's not me, gang. It's not me. It's the things I did in my life, not the person who I am. The person who I am never sleeps the night before I talk, and I talk to 100,000 people a year. I toss and turn, and I pace back behind the curtain, just trying to get the courage to come out in front of all of you. You see, I changed schools 5 times between grade school and high school. And it left me with so many fears, so many insecurities, that it's actually tough for me to meet some of you one-to-one. If you had a party here at Breslin and I didn't know any of you, I'd walk through the doors. I'd hope that one of you would say hello. Just say something. If that didn't happen, I would just look around at some of the pennants. Maybe if there were food, I'd get food. And if still nobody talked to me, I'd leave. And I've done this dozens of times. Because it's too difficult for me to walk up to somebody and say, "Hi, my name is Jim," or say hello to somebody. I was a 7-letter athlete in high school. I got decent grades, class officer. And I spent my entire high school totally alone. Totally alone. I was surrounded by people. Totally alone. Because the shyness in me was so profound. It was so profound. I was coming back from a national speaking tour in Australia. And I was sitting in a big 747-400 series. And I was sitting in the center section. And there was a person on both sides of me. From Sydney to Honolulu, 10.5 hours. I read the same newspapers, same magazines, over and over and over again. Waiting for the person on either side of me to just start a conversation. And when that didn't happen, the shyness and all the pain took over. All the pain took over. So I know what it's like to be lonely. And I'm really clear on that. So many of you exist in your fraternities and sororities, and people don't even know who you are. People don't even know who you are, because you're very adept at keeping yourself hidden, keeping the mask on. But the deal is, if you can't feel safe in your own fraternity and sorority, that should be a healthy place for you, then how will you ever feel safe once you leave there? So the key is for many of you to create that safety, to be real with each other, not to be afraid, but to really let each other in. And that's when you build incredible friendships. That's when lifetime friendships occur. And that is the best of the best. Raise your hand here if you have a best friend. Raise your hand, everybody. Now I'm going to work around as best I can. Obviously, again, big venue. Raise your hand individually, any of you, and tell me what makes that person a best friend to you. Anybody. What makes that person a best friend? Yes. Someone you can talk to always. Yes. Someone you can trust. Anybody else? What makes that person a best friend? Yes. Yes. What is it? Clowns? Oh, he's funny. Yeah, that actually saves my marriage all the time. It's between my wife and I. Very good. I wasn't sure where you were going on that. That really is neat. Anybody else? What makes that person the best friend? Yes. You can be yourself. You can be vulnerable about them. Anybody else? Yes. Same interests, without a doubt. Anyone else? What makes that person the best friend to you? Yes. They tell you when you're wrong. Great friend. By the way, if your best friend is here tonight, then that's phenomenal, because you acknowledge them in front of a huge audience. If they're not here tonight, when you get back to wherever you're going tonight, find a way to communicate with them. Let them know in front of, 3,000 people that you actually, acknowledge them as what they are and how important they are in your life. And it's phenomenal how the doors open up between them. Anybody else? What makes that person the best friend? Yes. They're understanding. Anybody else? Yes. You love them unconditionally. Anybody up there? Yes. Anybody else? What makes that person the best friend to you? Yes. They're reliable. Yes. They tell you the truth. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. They like you for you. Great stuff. A couple more. Anybody else? Yes. They don't judge you. Yes. They make you laugh. There's the clown thing again. Those are really wonderful answers. But I have a question for you. Why didn't some of you that just spoke, why didn't you mention the grades that person had, the sports they played, the cars they drove, the money that they did or didn't have? Why didn't you mention that? Anybody? Doesn't matter? Not important? Then why do we believe it matters? Why do we believe we continue to judge people on what they have or they don't have? If you know in your heart, your gut, that it doesn't matter, then why do you continue to judge people, put them down, make them feel less than, make them feel devalued? Let me show you something else that's not important. You were killed tonight on the way home in an automobile accident. We're having a memorial service here at Breslin for you. Want people only remember you for the Maserati? No, how do you want to be remembered? As a good friend. You were killed tonight on the way home in an automobile accident. We're having a memorial service in Breslin for you. Want people to remember you for the Audi? How do you want people to remember you? Someone who made other people happy. Isn't it interesting, everyone? Not more than 10 minutes ago, these two guys were prepared to do major damage, if not kill me violently, over two cars that they don't want to be remembered for. They were prepared to take a bat and do major damage over two cars they don't want to be remembered for. We complicate our lives. It is so simple, everyone. So simple. Stop. Stop. If you have tuned this out up until now, stop. All I'm asking for is 10 seconds of your time. How do I want the people in my life who I love and who love me to remember me? If some of you want to be remembered as a great friend, put that one up at the top of the list in your life and live it out. If some of you want to be remembered as a person who was there when people needed you, put that one up at the top of the list in your life and live it out. If some of you want to be remembered as just a person who cared, put that one up at the top of the list in your life and live it out. That's not to say don't go after a lot of money. That's not to say don't get the best job possible. That's not to say don't have a ton of friends. I'm simply saying to you, ask yourself that question. And if you can start to live that out, you will be among the people who are truly, truly fulfilled and happy in their lives. You will live out your destiny. Because that question denotes, that's your GPS. That is your guideline. So if you're searching right now, which many of you are, where do I fit? What's my purpose? Where does my destiny take me? What's going to happen in my life? Follow that question. Follow that question. And you will discover phenomenal things happen. Phenomenal things happen. It's the greatest gift. I grew up in a macho family, New York City street kid. Ever since I was very young, 7, 8 years old, I was told it was weak, it was wrong, it was unmanly to share my feelings. And so never once in my whole life did I ever tell my mother or my father or my brother that I loved them. Never. And I would have given anything for someone to have walked into a place where I was and asked me to raise my hand for my best friend. I would have given anything to have raised my hand for my dad. Well, my dad was very effective. He knew exactly how to shut me down. Every time I'd go to open up, he would say, I can't be bothered now. Go back to your room. Don't ever let me see you cry. And so I kept stuffing my feelings down further and further and further until there was no place to go. A number of years ago, I had the biggest turn happen in my life. I was speaking at a school, and in the middle of my program, somebody pulled me off to the side and said, "Jim, we got an emergency phone call. Sounds real serious, you better take care of it." Turned out my father had a series of heart attacks, 3 in succession. I don't even remember finishing the program, but I do remember getting on a plane, flying to New York, walking into my dad's hospital room, and seeing him laid out in a coma, intravenous bottles coming out, tubes sticking out all over. And my first instinct, everyone, was I walked over and I grabbed his hands. I grabbed his hands. And I wanted to tell him I loved him. I wanted to tell him he was special. I wanted to tell him he had made a difference in my life. But I couldn't do it. I literally couldn't do it. See, all the old tapes kept playing in my head. It's not safe. Don't say it. He's going to hurt you. He's going to put you down. Instead, I sat next to his bed for 2 days, and I watched him move in and out of a coma. And every time his eyes would open up, there was another opportunity. And every time his eyes would open up, I'd say, I wanted to tell him I loved him, but I would say, "Dad, you need anything? You want a drink of water? You want me to get the nurse?" What I really wanted to say in my heart and my gut was, "I love you, Dad." But I couldn't get the courage to come to do it. I sat there 2 days, slept in the chair. So many times, and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find the courage. His life was hanging by a thread. I couldn't reach inside to find it. My dad survived the heart attacks. And ironically enough, I got a second chance. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. I had a speaking engagement in New York City and called my father up and I said, "You just got out of the hospital." I said, "Pop," I said, "I didn't get a chance to tell you something while I was in the hospital with you. I need to now. I'm coming into New York. Let's get together for dinner." Well, everyone, he gave me the perfect out. He said, "Jim, I got dinner plans. What about lunch?" Well, I had meetings, I had television commitments, I had all kinds of things. And I rearranged everything, to get to that restaurant a half an hour early, to tell him for the first time in my life that I loved him. First time in my life that I loved him. And I was so frightened. I was so frightened. You know how you know when another person can control your whole demeanor just by a single word? So I sat in that restaurant trying to do mind games. What words were going to make him not put me down? What words were going to make him not hurt me? What words were going to make him not laugh at me? What words were going to make him not be silent, which was my father's most effective weapon to shut me down? And I'm sitting there, and I completely freaked out and just had to get up and walk around the block to get my courage up. And I'm walking around the block and not even thinking I'm in my own space. And I look at the clock on one of the buildings and realize I was 15 minutes late. And my father, who runs his whole life by his watch, I knew would be sitting there. And I tore in that restaurant. And the first thing my father did was jam me put his finger in my face. Why are you 15 minutes late? You know I've only got an hour for lunch. When are you going to be on time? I looked at him and I said, not on your best day am I going to tell him I love him. But I looked back at my father. He had lost 50 pounds since the heart attacks. Cheekbones were coming through. And I knew I wasn't going to get a third chance. So again, I reached across the table, pulled his hands close to me. And I said, Dad, thanks for waiting up till 2 o'clock in the morning when I didn't show up all night. Thanks for standing by me when I tore the cartilage in my knee, couldn't finish the last 3 football games. A ton of guys came down on my back. Thanks for bailing me out, Dad. I really love you. And as I said, I really love you, put my head down. I didn't ever want to see what my father's reaction was. Everyone, when I raised my head and I looked at my father, it was the last reaction that I could have ever imagined. For the first time in my life, I never saw it at my grandfather's funeral. First time in my life, I watched my father cry. And I came around the table, and I put my arms around him. And his head was sobbing on the side of my chest. And I held him. I could tell all of you, next to my wedding day, that was the best moment I've ever had in my whole life. Ever had in my whole life. And I got together with him the next morning. And he told me something that blew me out of the water. He said, Jim, I would have gone to my grave and not been able to tell you that I loved you. Because my father, my grandfather, told him it was wrong. He was just passing that one on to me. Just passing that one on to me. Many of you here tonight, you've inherited the legacy from your parents who inherited it from their parents, and sometimes it's a dysfunctional legacy. Sometimes it's cruel, it's inhuman, it's insensitive, but you've inherited that. And the challenge is, what do you do with it? And if you don't believe that you've inherited, let me show you something now. Raise your hand here tonight if you can remember your most painful moment. Raise your hand, everybody, if you can remember your most painful moment. How long ago? 2 years ago. Anybody else? 2 years. Yes. 3 years. Anybody else? How long ago for your most painful moment? Yes. When you were 5. Anybody else? Raise your hand if you can remember your most painful moment. How long ago? Anybody? Yes. 2 years. Anybody else? Anybody over here? How long ago? 6 months. Anybody here? Yes. Last June. Anybody else? Most painful moment. How long ago? How long ago? Anybody? What just happened here? I didn't ask any of you to tell me what your most painful moment was. I just asked you to remember it. And many of you brought it back as if it happened yesterday. So here's the thing. Because these painful moments define a lot of your life. They can kill any ability to feel safe or trust or even feel like you're worthy. So when these painful moments come up, Say to yourself, damn it, I am not going to let this beat me. I am not going to let this beat me. Because they will. These moments that are living inside of you, these disappointments, these challenges, they will come back time and time and time again until you say enough. Enough. First time I ever told the story about my dad, a young girl was moved to get up out of her seat to call her father, who was in Breslin hospital, to tell him for the first time in her life that she loved him. First time. And her dad, who was so thrilled, said, come on over, I need to be with you. She raced over there. It was a morning program. Stayed there from 10 in the morning till about 10 at night. Her and her dad just unloading all the things that had been sitting inside of them. All the things that had blocked their relationship. It was 2 hours past visiting time. And her dad said, you look tired. Go home. She says, I'm not leaving, Dad. She says, I want to be here with you. I need to be here with you. This is the closest we've ever been. He said, don't be silly. This is the beginning for us. She says, I'm not leaving, Dad. He says, make an old man happy, go home. Go home. Everyone reluctantly, she went home. At 7:30 the next morning, her father died on the operating table. I got a call from her the first day of grief to thank me for giving her the courage to tell her father how much she cared. And the words were so powerful. Put them up my bulletin board. And I always put my hand on those words before I go out to give a talk. Because I don't want to ever forget what this was about. What this program is about. And she said, Jim, we had a lot of time together, and yet we had no time together. I was speaking at a school in Utah. A young girl wasn't so lucky. She waited till after school to tell her father how much she cared. She raced home. There was an EMS truck in the driveway. Her father would be cleaning out the garage. Had dropped dead of a heart attack at 38 years old. 38 years old! And I got a call from her the first day of grief. And she said, Jim, I know you get a chance to talk to thousands of people in your life. Tell them not to wait. Tell them I waited a half an hour too long. There are many of you out there tonight. You've got friends a few feet away. You've got family that you love. You've got important people in your life. But never once have you told them that you loved them. Never once have you told them. Live with the reality as I do. There is no guarantee that the person that you care about is going to make it home tonight. No guarantee whatsoever. None of us are clear how much we've got. And I wish I could bring back that person that you lost when you raised your hand, that you went to the funeral and last year, 5 years more. I wish I could bring that person back. But obviously I can't. The next best thing I can do is to give you the gift of what I'm giving you here tonight, which is in tribute to that person. In tribute to that person and the love they gave you. Make sure that your little corner of the world is filled with that love. And you know something? No greater tribute on this earth. No greater tribute on this earth I was speaking at a school in Florida, and a young boy gave me this. I didn't know what it was, and I was going back to my hotel, and I accidentally grabbed something out of my pocket, and this came out. And I started reading it, and I pulled off the side on the service drive because I wanted to read it more, and I kept reading and reading and reading. Somehow, this young boy had captured all of what I'm trying to share with you tonight. It's called Friendly Pain. A good friend, yes, an exceptional friend. Someone to talk to, laugh with, confide in. His smile wearing a great smile, bright. Grade school, junior high school, college, the best times of your life, most say. So far they're right. Lucky I was to have such a great friend. So many smiles and the laughter. The plans we made, him to college, I stayed home. When we can, we'll get together, smile, drink some beer, laugh, and offer honest advice. Now we can't, for he fell asleep behind the wheel. Oh, the pain, my stomach like a burning flame. It can't be true, we never said goodbye. The plans, well, I've made new with new friends that smile and laugh. It's never the same, it never will be. It's like ice cream on a hot summer day, and we never said goodbye. I wish for the people you never said goodbye to. I wish I could bring them just back for 5 minutes. 5 minutes, everyone. 5 minutes. Because I know there's something left in your heart to say. And by the way, in the long run, people don't remember your heart anyway. I've never been to a funeral in my whole life where somebody got up and said, that person lived in a great house. That person drove a great car. What they always say about the person is, that person loved me unconditionally. That person was there when I needed them. That person was special to my life. And 10 minutes after all of us are gone, the people who love us are going to love us. And no one is going to get up and say, I love Jim Tuman. And everybody else, after we're gone, no one's going to care. The world is going to keep going. People are going to get up every day. So in the long run, people remember your heart. So the key for all of you is, what do you do with that information? And how do you make your heart special in this world? How do you make your heart special? 6 years ago, this coming June, an 18-year-old girl changed my life. I walked into a Red Robin restaurant, and the waitress comes over and she says, what would you like to drink? And I said, I'll have a Diet Coke. And she said, oh, I'm so sorry, we only have Pepsi products. And I said, well, you know, I really want a Diet Coke, but I understand just bring me some water. And she looked at me and she said, do you really want a Diet Coke? And I said, that'd be great, but I understand. She said, well, let me see what I can do to make that happen. And I looked at her and I thought, what are you talking about? She said, there's a 7-Eleven across the street. I'll run over and get you a Diet Coke. Now I eat out all over the world, and I've never had anybody that has ever offered up that gesture. I got up, gave her a hug, said, thank you for the gesture, but water would be fine. 10 minutes later, it's June, humid, beads of sweat on her forehead. She comes running in, and on her tray are 2 Diet Cokes. Well, I did all the obligatory things. I gave her a big tip, I told the manager, but I left that day, and I thought, at 18 years old, if she could go the extra mile, that I could get up every single morning from that point to the end of my life and do something for someone that makes a difference in their life. And from that moment till tonight, there hasn't been one day when something doesn't occur to me to do. Small, large situation, and that 18-year-old girl changed my life. And I couldn't pick her out if she was a few feet from me tonight. But what she did that night changed how I look at life. All of you have this. All of you have this opportunity. My wife Jan and I were watching television over Christmas. And a news segment came on, and there were four rape, murder, violence issues on 4 different college campuses in Michigan. Eastern, Wayne State, MSU, U of M. 4. And then they put a mic in front of a girl, and she said, you know, I thought the toughest thing I would have to face when I went to college was getting a degree and going out and getting a good job. She said, the toughest thing that now I realize I have to face is just getting back to my dorm safely. The playing field has changed, everybody. The playing field has changed. But all of you can help level out that playing field. I was speaking at the neighboring town to Newtown. And 2 mothers came over whose kids were killed. And we all cried together, and I left that day, and I thought, what can I do? What can I do for these little kids that never got to be kids? And I decided my next program was actually here for my chapter. And we started enacting 26 days of acts of kindness. Small acts all over campus. And all the brothers got involved. And they posted on Facebook and Twitter, not for recognition, but for inspiration, that others would pick up the ball and keep it going. So I challenge all of you tonight. If you want to start this program, go see Epsilon Lambda, because I'm particularly proud of these brothers who took an idea, built on it, and changed some lives in the process. It's a no-brainer. There's no money involved. There is no time involved. It is simply doing something that you would normally do, which is to figure out in your little corner of the world how to make it a little bit better. A little bit better. I was in New York when Princess died, and when JFK Jr. died. And I was just floored as to the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on flowers that people took and left where they worked, where they lived, and yet they couldn't take those same flowers and take them back to their own families and make their own family lives a little bit better. So tonight, after this is done, I want you to go back and talk about 26 days of acts of kindness. It's catching on around the country. And you could be on the cutting edge. President Simon gave the chapter recognition, but more important to me was the list of things that, as brothers reported, how many people that day received the caring from strangers. And then you can enact this 26 days of acts of kindness and be eyes and ears for this campus. If you see something that seems out of the ordinary, stand up and say it, and let's take the people who hurt us out of the shadows. I have a poster series, and that's one of my posters that I designed after Newtown. Let's take people who hurt us out of the shadows. Out of the shadows. You can do it. You are the hope. You are the hope. I'm challenged. I've had quadruple bypass. I'm an insulin-dependent diabetic. My sugar's down to the floor. So my time it's counted, you know, not in the same arena or even close to yours. But you can turn some of these things around. Or you can just step back and watch on television as the problems continue to escalate and be as much a part of the problem instead of being part of the solution. So I really challenge all of you. Because in the end, people only remember your hearts. They only remember your hearts. And you can remember this as 4 years of the toughest times you've ever had, or 4 years of at least great times or decent times. And the difference is the people sitting around you tonight, right now. The people who care about you, who've got your back. The people who want the best for you. But it's your choice again. I've struggled so long, and I finally met the woman of my dreams, and I want to hang on as long as is possible for me in my life to be able to love her and have her love me. So you have this choice. A number of years ago, I got a chance to go on the road when the Beatles first made their national tour. I was a photographer at the time. And I was in Chicago, and John Lennon had put a full-page ad in the Chicago Tribune asking to meet with 75 aspiring songwriters to be there that day. And Lennon, who was probably the softest spoken man I had ever heard, came out of the side curtain and barely above a whisper, he said, "I am no more talented than any of you." Nobody even heard him. I nudged the guy next to me. And Lennon realized nobody had heard him. And he came back, and in the loudest voice he could possibly muster, he said, "I am no more talented than any of you." Sure enough, a guy in the back raised his hand, and he said, "Hey, John, how can you tell us we are nobodies? The world is singing your music. Your concerts are standing room only. You're making a ton of money." He said, "The only difference between myself and you is if I've got a song inside, if I've got a dream in my gut, I can have somebody write it, somebody promote it, somebody play it, and hopefully somebody buy it. Every one of you here tonight has something special to offer. But it doesn't mean anything if we put you in the middle of the circle on this stage, and every one of us told you how great you are, if you don't buy it inside. It's my hope that some of you, and I live here, live in Royal Oak, see me in a mall, see me in an airport, see me up here on campus, wherever. Come up and tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Jim, I heard you speak 5, 10, 15 years ago. I want you to know I'm going after my dreams. I'm feeling great about myself. And most of all, I'm giving to a whole lot of people in my life. And I'll walk away with an incredible smile on my face. Every one of you can make something happen in your lives. And none of you ever has to go it alone. None of you has to go it alone. I want to thank you tonight for giving me a space to work. I'm spent. I've given you everything I can give you. You know, I'm done. Thank you from my heart to yours. I love you guys. Thank you so much.